Those are the opening stanzas, the first few bars of the Ukrainian national anthem. In a rough translation in English, it says, "Ukraine has not yet died, nor her glory, nor her freedom." And I think that says a lot about Ukraine and Ukrainians and their mentality. It was written by a Ukrainian poet from Kiev in the 1860s. But I'm standing here at a monument for Ukraine's national poet, Taras Shevchenko. He was a poet in the 1840s. He is to Ukrainians what Shakespeare is to the English, or Robbie Burns is to the Scots, Pushkin is to the Russians, and maybe for us Yanks it's, Walt Whitman. But nevertheless, many see him as the voice of this nation. And it is interesting to note that in 1847, Shevchenko was imprisoned by the Russian Tsars for daring to write poems in his native language of Ukrainian, and for making fun of the royal court of Russia. He called for an independent Ukraine. So keep in mind, this is 1846. The war that's going on right now has been a long time coming. When I first came to Ukraine in 2001, I was struck by how very different they are to Russians, and yet similar in so many different ways. Unlike the Russians, Ukrainians have a very strong sense of self-identity. They know they are Europeans. They don't have the schizophrenia of the Russians, who, it has to be said, have a double-headed eagle as their symbol for a reason. One head of that eagle looks west, one head of that eagle looks east. The Russians have an identity crisis. The Ukrainians do not. They know who they are. And that, I think, comes to the core of the conflict that we see here today in Ukraine. I've been coming here since 2001. The first time I was here, it was for the visit of Pope John Paul II. And it was very controversial. Here in the west of the country, I'm in Lviv, a small town about an hour's drive to the Polish border. Here, the Pope was welcomed with open arms. Many of the people here are Catholic. Ethnicity is mixed between Ukrainian and many Poles, actually. Subsequently, I came here in 2014, not here to Lviv, but to Ukraine, to witness the events on Maidan. And I was so struck by these people's desire for independence and to get out from under the thumb of Moscow that I made promises to many of them that if this inevitability did happen, that the Russians would come and try to retake this land, that I would return to Ukraine and bear witness. And that's why I'm here. So this is a small primer for my friends and family, and you can share this as wide and as far as you possibly can. I hope you do. These are a proud people, and I am impressed by their unified sense of spirit and identity. Putin has done something that many Russian leaders have feared for centuries. He's driven a wedge between these two people. In fact, the creation of Russia was in Kiev. Originally, Vikings who came down the riverways settled there and would begin the culture that would eventually become Russia, Kievan Rus. And the Russians feel a sense of kinship, but a kinship as an older brother or as a senior to a minor. Ukrainians, of course, do not see it the same way. Unfortunately for Ukraine, they are situated geographically at a very vulnerable spot in Europe. For centuries, these people have been the pawns of greater, larger neighbors. Whether it was the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth or later the Habsburgs and the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and then of course the Russians and the Kremlin, this place has always been subjugated by bigger, more powerful neighbors. What we've seen in the last few days, in the days of this current war, is that they are no longer pawns. They are no longer willing to subject themselves to the whims of their neighbors. When I first started coming here, my Russian colleagues and friends, they teased me. I said I was going to Ukraine. And they would say, what is that? Is that a country? That's not a country. Maybe it's a people, but it's not a country. Well, unfortunately for the Russians, I think the Ukrainians are proving them wrong. There is no doubt in my mind but that these people will win this war. And when they do, they will build a country that is strong in its self-identity, that is European, that has the rule of law, that has a strong and stable middle class, able to thrive without the corruption that we see in Russia and that we've seen here. They have a lot of work to do after this war. But to me, as an American, I see this as almost a revolutionary moment for the Ukrainians. If Zelensky is Washington and Kiev is Yorktown, then there are many, many Lafayettes who are coming to aid Ukraine in their attempt at their striving to become a truly independent nation, which I have no doubt they will. But they need the support of the international community. They need the support of the world, and they're getting it. I think Putin may have overstepped. This country will never be tied to Moscow again. As a Ukrainian poetess friend of mine said back in 2014, and she reiterated it to me in the last few days, "Мы никогда не будем братьями." We will never be brothers again. And I've heard that far and wide here in Ukraine. As the Ukrainians say, Slava Ukrainia, Geroyam Slava. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.